Good day, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you happen to be listening to this video. Again, my name is Laurie McNaughton. I am your Scale Up Business Coach. Today, in this Monday Momentum, we're going to talk about the power of vulnerability. So, what does that mean, the power of vulnerability? Let me ask you a question. How many of you like to do courageous things? How many of you look for courage in situations, whether that's at work or whether that's at home or whether that's with your friends or wherever that might be? How many of you look for courage to do that? So, what I'm going to do is make a point that in order for you to be courageous, in order for you to do something to, uh, you know, improve any part of your life, it's going to take some courage. It really is this idea that you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now, a lot of what I'm going to talk about comes from a lady by the name of Brené Brown. I think I first came across her on Netflix. She had a documentary on there, and I forget the title of it, but it was about courage and vulnerability. And then since then, I've read a couple of her books, and uh, just fascinating kind of idea and work. But the point of it is that to build a successful business, to be a successful entrepreneur, it often takes courage. But where it takes vulnerability is because you got to take a risk. Whenever you step out of the norm or step out of the comfort zone, if you want to call it that, you're taking a risk. Now, let's talk about just from a physical standpoint. I parachuted, did skydiving one day. I went out with a friend and we went skydiving. So we jumped out of a plane not once but twice, and it took a lot of courage to do that. But I also put myself in a vulnerable position because anybody that jumps out of an airplane now, fortunately, the statistics around people being injured by jumping out of an airplane are small, but you are being vulnerable. So you're putting something at risk is the point of that whole conversation. Now, the part of the conversation that is around business is because you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be an employer, you're going to be a leader, which means that you're going to put yourself in a vulnerable position where people may or may disagree with you. And when they disagree with you, you may feel activated by that. Now, I want to make a point about activation because I remember talking to a guy a while back, and he's mentioning how people get activated, and you're absolutely right. Everybody gets activated at some levels. Just some people get out of that activation right away, and others stick around in it. So, as a leader, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you're going to put yourself in a vulnerable position from time to time, which means you put either your own ego or self picture of yourself in a vulnerable position. So, um, this is just a quote from Brené Brown. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. This is an important thing to note because when you're in business, it's really not necessarily about winning and losing. I mean, obviously, we all want to succeed, but it isn't. If I have an idea about how I want something done, it's not about you have to do it my way. It's about doing it so that we win. And that so in that instance, I may be having a discussion with somebody who's doing some work for me, and I might disagree with them, but I don't care about whether I win or not from the standpoint of do it my way. It's from the standpoint of I want to succeed at this. I want to win in the end. I want to win in this adventure. So vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when you have no control over the outcome. Now, anybody that's worked with me know that I do a lot of workshops. Every time I do a workshop, I put myself in a vulnerable position. I put myself in a situation where people may or may disagree with what I say. And so it takes a lot of courage to do that. Now, Also on the courage side of things, um, some of you have, on some of my other videos, I've talked a little bit about this, but I think it's a important point to note is that when it comes to public speaking, you know, I would have like panic attacks over that. I remember having a attack at school. I remember having a panic attack when I was at a workshop where all I was asked to do was stand up, say my name, where I worked, and how long I've been doing that kind of work. And um, so that's being put in a vulnerable position. Since then, I joined Toastmasters. I did Toastmasters for 7 years. I've had the opportunity to speak at a global conference with 800 people in the room. So again, it's about being okay with being vulnerable because that's where courage comes from. So this I want to tie this in with business, and that is, vulnerability. Sometimes people equal that to weakness. It's not a weakness; it's really a strength. See, in leadership and business, many people believe showing uncertainty makes you appear weak. But in truth, vulnerability is the most accurate measure of courage, going back to what I've already talked about. But the point I want to make, because a lot of my clients that I've worked with over the past couple of decades have often felt like I need to be right. I'm the boss, I'm the owner, I'm the leader. If I'm not right, then I'm not looked upon as being those things. But in actual fact, you've got to step up, be vulnerable, and say, you know what? This is the reality of it. It's like me saying, you know, uh, I panicked when I had to do a presentation at school. I panicked when all I had to do was stand up and say, you know, my name is Laurie McNaughton. I work at Parkland Chrysler and I've been selling cars for 6 months, I can't remember what it was at that time. And then I left the car sales and went on to inside sales with an oil field company. And then I went to outside sales in lubricants. And all of those things were putting me in vulnerable situations because in outside sales, you got to call on a lot of people. And I called on people at businesses at basically door to door cold calling. So um, it takes vulnerability to do that. It being because that's where the courage comes from, saying, you know what? Yeah, this person might throw me out, might tell me off, might say, you guys are always bugging me. Which I don't think that ever happened. But you have to be able to be okay with being vulnerable. Now I see that, oh, I can read it over here. So why does it matter? First of all, it builds trust because you, as the leader of the company, people, and you go, you know what? Hey, listen, I don't know the real answer to this. Let's work on this together. Shows that uh, you are somebody that they can trust, and then you can build this psychological safety inside your company. And I say that you got to look at your team, and you want them to feel safe to be able to say what they need to say. I remember reading something by Alan Mulally. He was the CEO of Boeing and Ford Motor Company at different times. But he said, the last thing I want is people keeping things from me. The last thing I want is people keeping things from me. So if you're having a challenge or a problem or you're having difficulty with something, I want you to come to me and say, I need some help with this. And that builds that psychological safety with your team. So invite collaboration and innovation. This is huge. Like I can't tell you how many times I've worked with clients with teams of people where they've solved the most difficult challenges that they had in their business by collaborating and working as a team. You remember what in previous videos I talk about team is together, everybody achieves more. You got to remember that. So makes feedback much more easier. It takes the accountability level to another level, and growth becomes possible inside your organization. And it really humanizes you as the leader. And this is the thing: you need to be looked upon as a human being, not sort of some person who doesn't have any feelings or emotions or anything like that. People will follow those people who are real. So now I'm going to have to look over here because I see my little picture is covered up. Oh, wait a minute. Can I move? Oh, look at that. I can move that. I learned something new today. So, vulnerability in action is admitting that I don't know, but I'm going to work at finding out what the answer is to, and sharing authentic personal stories. That's why I shared the little story about me having these panic attacks when I had to do some public speaking. because it makes me relatable. It makes people go, I know exactly what you're talking about. I felt or I've experienced exactly the same thing. Now we have another level of bonding. We have another level of trust. And I've opened up this psychological safety, if I could call it that. So asking for feedback when it's not comfortable. I don't like feedback, but I ask for feedback and I thank people for that feedback, even if it's not good feedback, because it's an opportunity for me to reflect. And sometimes what I like, if I can see in somebody else the challenges they're having, but I can't see from the challenge that I'm having. So that feedback will sometimes just open up a door and go, oh, duh, you know what? So, and then owning mistakes and not getting defensive about it. If you get defensive, people are not going to give you feedback or feed forward. I'm not going to talk about feed forward now because I only have a few minutes. I want to keep these videos short and sweet so that you'll sit down and listen to them all and take notes and maybe listen to them twice because the information that I'm talking about here today is like hugely important. Okay, so let's move along. So here's some reflections. Now, at this point, you're going to just pause the video and answer these questions for you. So where in your business or leadership are you protecting yourself against, pardon me, instead of connecting with others? And then what would it look like to show up more authentically this week? And then the third question is, what's one conversation you've been avoiding because of fear or pride? Worse yet, pride. And what could change if you approached it with vulnerability, meaning being a real person? How is that potentially going to help you move forward on this in your business? So this is your challenge this week. Practice one act of vulnerability in this week. Admit a mistake. Ask a team member for some honest feedback. Share a personal story in your next team meeting. Say, I need help. When you usually power through things on your own. Here's the thing, and I think asking for help is a superpower. When I grew up, when I was part of this big coaching organization, one of the things they kept telling me is ask for help, ask for help, ask for help, because people will step up and give you help. So notice what happens when you lead from courage instead of control. Notice what happens when you lead from courage instead of control. Very valuable information that you'll get from that. So let's see here. There's a quote here. Courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. So that's from Brené Brown. And when you show up with vulnerability, you give others permission to do the same. And that's how you make that real connection and create momentum in your business. So that's Monday Momentum this week. Do the work. I've talked about this in the past. To know is not enough. You have to do. So I'm Laurie McNaughton, your Scale Up Biz Coach, and this is part of my scaling up performance system that I've developed after 20 years of working with hundreds of business owners and literally having conversations with, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 business owners over the past couple of decades. So this is part of the system that you can use to help you scale your business up with a whole lot more fun, a lot less stress, and make more money. Thanks for listening. In the description, there is going to be a link so you can book a meeting with me, or you can join us on our Wednesday webinars. And the last thing I'd like to say before I forget, because I keep forgetting this, is like smash that subscribe button. That's what they say to say. Somebody said to say that. I don't know. But subscribe to the channel and like the video because it picks up the algorithm and it spreads this information to more people. And my goal is to have a bigger impact on more small, medium-sized business owners in this last chapter of my coaching career. So until we meet, I have the opportunity to work with you and help you solve some problems in your business. I wish you nothing but success. Take care and have a great day.